and Mr. Adams is online. Thank you, Mr. Adams. As we do normally, we'll review the agenda for our council meeting on Monday. And council, if you have any questions, we can ask those. Well, we have a presentation, but I thought we'd go through the agenda first, then we'll circle back to 4A. If that's okay. I did have a question, Mr. Kennington, on 3A, the 4-year term. Have we been doing that, the renewal options on the online police reporting? Maybe get a report on that, because that, I don't remember that.
I think this is a new software, but we'll have Patrick.
Software, thank you. I don't remember seeing this over the years, maybe because it's every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Pat Phelps, Deputy Director of the Police Department. Thank you for your question. The Police Department has had online reporting for probably more than a decade now. This is an upgrade to an existing system, replacing with a new vendor that's the same as our records management system. It's going to provide for a more seamless collection of data from the public. It's sort of an AI-driven product that'll ask questions to a citizen to help better collect the information we need to file the report. As it comes in, it already is better categorized for us, so it reduces the some of the review that staff need to do to be able to categorize that for the FBI.
Thank you. I just did remember seeing that over the years, but good overview. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Adams.
Just a quick question. Is this an interactive online thing, or is this a voice-driven AI where it says, "Thank you for calling Mesa Police Department. How can I help you?" Or just a little more information, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Council Member. It is an online thing. There is no voice component to this. You can do it either on a PC or on your phone. And it's similar to what you might see on some customer support type sites where, for example, a citizen could say something like, "I just got home and I found some items missing for my house." And you can say, "Okay, it sounds like you want to report a burglary." And it'll ask them questions, whereas in a previous iteration, it was very much question and answer. What type of incident do you want to report? Were items taken from your home? It's interactive with a citizen, so it'll help better collect the information we have for more thorough report collection.
Is it a real-time reporting thing where if someone sees something and they wish to take a picture of it with their phone, can they send, here's what I'm talking about?
It does have, thank you, Council Member. It does have the ability to accept attachments. Exactly the type will be determined through our configuration process once that's under contract.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Duff?
Yeah, I had a question on 4B and the IGA with Queen Creek on the natural gas line. So I'm kind of confused about, and I'm trying, it's been a few days since I looked at this, but are we ended up paying for the gas line to LG?
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, no, we are constructing the gas line, but we have agreements with LG, and LG is actually paying the entire cost to hook their plant that they're constructing right now to our natural gas system and for the meter set that is necessary for us to deliver gas to them. So currently we have received $10.5 million from LG for that project. They're holding back $2 million. We're estimating the total cost to connect them, the infrastructure to go down Germain and up Ironwood and then put in their meter set to be about $12.5 million. So we have 10.5 of that right now. The city actually has possession of those funds. And then once we deliver first gas, we'll true up on what the final costs are for construction.
All right. So Queen Creek had done some of the engineering, but you have the money from LG, and then that's how it's being passed. So we're not paying for that.
Yeah, Mayor,
Okay.
Councilmember Duff, that's exactly right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I also have 7C on the DA for the Medina Station. I just wanted to know from Alicia, Scott, like, if it's, I guess it's, Alicia, it's in your district.
I think it's on the border between the two. But
Okay, all right.
It's in Alicia's district.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're good with the DA?
Yes.
You want some information on
But
it?
if you want more information, do you have questions?
I had a meeting on it. I just wanted to, clarify where we were. We had a lot of discussion last time we discussed it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine.
All right, with that, let's go back to 4A and have an overview of that. I think, Mr. Boshi, you're coming up, and Tony.
I can run it for you. Okay. That work? That's fine. All right. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Scott Boucher, the Energy and Sustainability Director here at the City of Mesa, joined by Tony Cadorn, our Energy Resources Program Manager. And today we're here to talk to you about the City of Mesa's Integrated Resource Plan. Now, this is a requirement. We do receive hydroelectric power. And as part of the requirement of receiving that power, we must complete an integrated resource plan. Now, Tony's worked on several of these, and I'm going to turn it over to Tony and have him explain it.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present on the Integrated Resource Plan. So you'll see us here about every 5 years presenting on the IRP, or Integrated Resource Plan, or IRP. But just looking at the electric utility by the numbers, so within our 5.5 square miles, we're now serving over 18,000 customers. As of last month, that was 18,118. But one of the numbers that we like to brag about that's critical to our mission statement of safe, reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy is that we have 2,355 days today of no lost time accidents. And so that's just about 6.5 years of no lost time accidents, thanks to the efforts of Kyle, Craig, Josh, and all our electric crews. So we're pretty proud of that. So we like to bring that to you and brag. But last summer, we did achieve a peak of 86.3 megawatts. That is the peak that we actually experienced at Rogers. However, if it would have been a much hotter day, what we call a design day, we would have seen about 92 megawatts. So the system's growing. We're over 90 megawatts now. We also are proud of our solar program, and so we now have 215 solar customers in that program for 2.3 megawatts. So if you look at our peak demand of 92, some of that is coming from our customer solar. So we're happy to offer that program to our customers. And then last year in fiscal year 23-24, we saw just over 300,000 megawatts of energy sales to our customers. So what is an integrated resource plan? So as Scott mentioned, this is a requirement for us to do every 5 years as a recipient of federal hydropower. But generally, it's just a best practice for utilities to do. This was something that was implemented throughout the 1970s, 1980s. But the Western Area Power Administration required this in 1992 through the Energy Policy Act of 1992. And so Mesa filed its first IRP in 1996. And we've been doing it approximately every 5 years ever since. And what we hope to achieve with our IRP is setting intention. It's not prescribing we're going to do exactly this, and this for the next 5 or 10 years. We're setting a framework for how we're going to evaluate resources through the future here. And so that's what we did in 2019, and we're hoping to carry those efforts forward through to this IRP. And there's been a lot of changes since 2019. These are some of the programs and critical actions that have happened since then. We launched our Mesa Electric Smart Peaks program. That's our smart thermostat program. We have 113 customers in that right now for the ability to shed about 500 kilowatts of load during critical pricing events. That was launched in 2023. In June 2023, we executed the SRP, what we call the Renewable Energy Project, for 16 megawatts of renewable energy that SRP delivers to us on a firm basis. There's no particular resource devoted to that. We're just delivered energy and then renewable energy credits along with it. So it's fully renewable, and we're excited about that. That's a cost-saving measure for the utility as well. our customer solar program has about tripled since 2019. So we've pretty actively marketed that and worked with customers to grow that program. We've also installed the downtown solar project here around the City Plaza area. That was brought into service in 2002. That's 804 kilowatts. One of the things that we view as sort of a guiding principle through this IRP is the Mesa's Climate Action Plan, which was published in June 2022. And so we use that as a guiding resource to economically evaluate resources in the context of sustainability. So trying to balance those two is important. And then we brought to you a few pending projects. So the EPCO solar project was approved in October of 2024. Our second downtown solar project was approved in June 2024, and we're working on those resources along with others. And so I think the main change since 2019 that we're facing is we've brought to you a lot of different things and kind of talked about a fundamental shift in the Southwest energy markets. And I'm hoping that these two graphs help illustrate what has transpired here. So going into the 2019 IRP, we were sitting around 5,000 megawatts of coal capacity between SRP, APS, TEP, and EPCO, the entities here in Arizona. Shortly before the end of 2019, the Navajo Generation Station was closed. It was the largest coal power plant in the Southwest, over 2,000 megawatts, and 945 of those megawatts were devoted to APS, SRP, and other Arizona entities. And so that happened, and then you can see on the right side graph, what's been happening to replace those sort of resource losses has been battery resources. And prior to 2021, there's only 631 megawatts of battery to kind of replace thousands of megawatts lost of coal generation and gas generation in some instances as well. And so in fall of 2020, we had the California rolling blackouts, and that just kind of fundamentally upended the market and let everybody know, hey, there's a capacity problem. And so on the right-hand side, you can see starting in 2021, there's been a massive deployment of battery resources. So we've gone from under 1,000 megawatts of battery resources up to over 14,000 megawatts. So it's really been a remarkable shift in the market away from these large legacy central plants to more of a decentralized renewable and battery grid here in the Southwest. Things have stabilized recently. So prices were going crazy in 2020, 21, 22. But since then, it's really calmed down. And a large part of that is this deployment of battery resources.
Any questions, council? Maybe give us an overview of what areas we do get our electricity from.
Sure.
So you talked about hydro, solar, renewable, battery, and then there's some natural gas generation.
Sure.
Is there any other components?
Mayor, council, so as it sits right now, why don't we go forward? Let's keep
Do you have
going.
it broken down in a graph?
We do, yeah. So, and then I can bounce back, but yeah, right there. So, so if we were to come to you last year with an IRP, it would have been the graph on the left. We're about 80% just what we call market resources. So dealing with market vendors to put in place 3 to 5 year contracts, sometimes down to 1 year, where we don't know what the resource is. We just know that it's showing up. And if it doesn't show up, the vendor pays us for it. And that's what's called firm power. So 80% of our resources were that market power that was just an amalgamation of whatever showed up. These vendors would go to various power plants, see what power is available, roll it all together, and deliver it to Mesa. And then the remainder was hydroelectric. We had a little bit of solar in there, but it was mostly market and hydro. Since then, we've added that SRP resource. And so you can see in the middle, we're moving away from that huge stack of market resources.
Very good. How's our battery storage with other entities, SRP? Do we have a agreement with them as well?
Mayor,
delivery?
Council, so we don't actually have any active battery resources currently. The EPCO Solar, Pinal Solar project that we brought to you in October, that is for 25 megawatts of solar and 20 megawatts of battery resources. So that would be our first large-scale battery project that we're hoping to bring online. It's obviously not in our utility service territory, so it's not a local resource. But because of that and grant funding, it's a very economical resource for us. In conjunction with that, one of the assets that Mesa has that maybe some other utilities don't is when we converted from 4,000 volts, 4 kV, to about 12,000 volts, 12 kV, so what our distribution system operates at, we actually required less substation facilities for that. And so we have a couple of vacant substation sites that sit throughout the city. They're not being used for anything. They're vacant land, and they're already next to high voltage facilities. So we think those would be great resources that we can use to investigate local battery storage as well. And so we're working with a Tempe vendor right now to see if there's something that we could do as something of a local pilot program there. But we also have, I think it's about 20 of our own customers have Tesla Powerwalls, or I think there's a couple other manufacturers there. So there are some batteries on our system. We don't control them right now, but we're looking to grow that resource.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Questions? Ms. Duff?
I have one question. I remember on a previous presentation, we were talking about how our energy grid and our projects that we want to do going forward, and one was natural gas generation to electricity, and I think there was one of the projects going to be near the police station, and I think near the Rogers or something, more of a resiliency, so, off-grid, well, it's within our own system for resiliency. Is there any perspectives as far as when that might be on our horizon, or is it just shelved right now until we figure out resources to do it?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Duff, we actually submitted a grant with the State Resiliency Office to try and receive some grant funding for that. For the price of the microgrid right now, it's difficult with us because there's going to be some rate pressures for the price of what that microgrid project is today. So we did submit, because it is exactly as you said, for resiliency for not only our electric utility, but also for the police department. We submitted a grant application with the state of Arizona and the Resiliency Office specifically. We have yet to hear back from them on the status of that grant and whether or not that's been successful. If it's successful, that will change the finances, I think, to the point that we would be able to then move forward with that project. And then with Rogers, we just continue to evaluate the possibilities that we might be able to have out there.
Do you know if that state grant is funded at the state level, or is it a federal dollars funneled through to the state?
It is federal dollars funneled through to the state. So there is obviously some questions about whether or not those funds, and I've had a lot of conversations because there's other projects, even the EPCO project that Tony described, that would really be, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, our cheapest resource. That also has federal funding tied to it. So if this federal funding all goes away, then that graph that you see on the right is not really going to be happening that way. We'll have to continue to look and evaluate resources and what we can bring in for the utility. But more than likely, it would go back to more of those conventional market resources, and maybe at a higher cost.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Thank you.
Mr. Adams, any questions?
Yes,
Well, you
thank
do
you.
have your hand up.
Yes, I think I finally figured out how to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have a quick question. I'm curious about the battery resource. And I realize that this is down the road, but are they underground? Can you elaborate a little bit on the battery storage? How much space? Where do they exist? And what are their useful life? Just a little more information, please.
Sure, thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Adams. So I think when we're looking at batteries, generally they're above ground, they're not below ground. But, or I guess I'm not aware of any that are below ground. That may exist, I'm just not sure. The ones that we're talking about with the EPCO project would be located very far away. It's a very large battery installation, so we're talking 400 megawatts of solar, 400 megawatts of battery. This is a huge, take out the whole field and put in solar and batteries type installation. I think one of the questions was, what's the useful life of an asset like that? We would be contracting for 20 to 25 years there. And so when we do it that way, one of the advantages is that we do care what the useful life is of those batteries, but with those contracts, we're putting in place damages that if the facility as a whole doesn't perform, they are paying for what we have to buy to make up for it. So we're made whole in the instance that it prematurely fails or parts of it fail. So that vendor is constantly incented to keep the thing up and running and performing. Now, if we're talking about maybe a battery here in Mesa, I think we're going to tiptoe fairly slowly into that in terms of what model we're going to use. So we could look at an ownership model. Right now, the vendor we're talking to is more of a lease model where we're paying them to set up their battery. And again, they are the ones on the hook for performance there. And if the thing fails prematurely, they're going to be responsible for damages. But I think that's something that we're going to be watching SRP and the surrounding utilities to see what they're doing in that space. We really take their leadership to heart. So hopefully that answers all the questions, unless there's any more.
Yes, no, that's very informative. I appreciate that. And I think that's wise that we have that backstop there in case they don't perform. That's very good practice. I guess as we move forward into it, my questions would be around safety. I know that certain types of batteries tend to burn very long, very hot, and they're difficult to extinguish if they catch fire. So as we get closer to that, if you're going to be located within the city, I'd like more information about that, but I think we're a ways off from that. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question. So you said that the cost of that energy is typically lower than other traditional sources?
What we are seeing on the market right now, solar is one of the cheapest energies you can purchase. What you need is you need to pair it with battery because solar will only produce during, obviously, times when the sun is up. With the battery storage, that will let you go into the time when people start then coming home and start turning on their appliances. They're making dinner, they're watching TV, they're doing, kids are doing homework. The batteries then allow you to take that stored energy, bring it out to the grid when you're having your peak demand that's happening later on in the evening as the sun is coming down. But what we are seeing is that solar is one of the cheapest form that we're seeing.
At utility scale.
At utility scale, yes. That's a very important side to it. And with EPCO, with the funding, the federal funding that they would be seeing, it is much lower than what we have seen for any of our all-source RFPs that we've put out.
So are you distinguishing the source between solar and the battery? Are you saying those are two different sources, or is that a distinction you're making, or were you just telling me this is kind of how it rolls through and ends up?
Well, I guess they are two distinct because one of them will charge the other, and then the other one is going to release that energy later on in the day.
But it's the same
And so we would be
cost.
contracted for.
So, I mean, maybe if we're looking at that field as one energy resources of combined solar and battery, and if the question is the combination of solar and battery cheaper than our other resources? I think it's probably on par with what our hydro resources are costing us, which are very inexpensive. It's generally less than $30 per megawatt hour. Whereas the market products that we're purchasing, depending on the time of day, generally it's hard for us to get below $60 right now with those contracts that we have with other vendors. So it is very inexpensive, even combining the two. We do see the expenses as a little different because with a battery, you just pay for it being there. And then if it charges, discharges, whatever, if you don't use it, you're paying the same. So it's a capacity charge or a reservation charge. With the solar, you pay for what comes out of it. So the charges are a little different, but if the question is, does the combination of battery and solar tend to beat other resources on the market? in a lot of instances, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, if you had to rank them, which would be your cheapest to your most expensive cost of power?
Mayor, Council, so right now, I think one of the key concepts that I want to emphasize is that you can't build a utility portfolio without these things. So it's like a car. You need wheels, you need an engine, you need seats, you need all that, and each of them has a different cost. But I think a lot of people think, oh, well, just solar is the cheapest, just go buy as much solar as possible. But truly, you do need a mix, and I think everybody understands that here. But I want to make it, absolutely clear that all these things are needed to make a comprehensive portfolio that meets the needs every day, every hour. Energy is critical to our society, right? But in terms of ranking, what we see is that currently our hydropower is the least expensive. Then it's going to be followed by our SRP renewable energy project deal. Then we're looking at our market power products. And then after that, it gets a little more expensive as we get into the small scale solar. So our customer solar, our downtown solar. But, we view those all as serving a critical part of making the whole thing work. So just want to throw that out there.
If I add, Tony, if you look at the 26, 27 pie chart that's up here, it would go hydro, the EPCO solar, then the SRP.
I think with current forecast, the hydro and the EPCO solar are going to be very close together. Our hydropower has gone up recently because we're operating these dams with less water flowing through them. So, you're paying for that capacity all the time, but there's less energy coming through. So, the denominator of that equation is going down. So hydro is tending to go up right now, and the EPCO solar seems to be staying where it is. But again, like Scott mentioned, if the grant goes away, then that could go up by 25% instantly. So as it lays out, I think they'll be competitive. Hard to choose a winner at this point.
Okay, good. Ms. Duff?
Yeah, and the biggest thing on that is most important is our resiliency, right? Like any business model, you don't want to be dependent on one source of how you do business, right? If something happens to that source, if there's stresses on that source, or there's huge market adjustments in that source, then you're suffering or out of power or whatever that is. So by having, I think, a combination of all these things, we can lean into one or the other according to our demands, what's going on in the market, and be, more resilient, have the rate structure that's going not to be all over the place according to what's going on in market forces. So I really applaud getting to this mix that provides the resiliency that we need. We've seen other parts of the country a few years ago, Texas, the freeze, they have one source, it's down, the whole city is down. So I appreciate all your work on this, and it helps us offset any big jumps or alterations in the prices so that our customers have more of an even price, a dependable price. Thanks.
Well, I just add that I think it's important still to pursue the natural gas generation in our city, to have that option available in case some portion of the grid or we have a brownout or we can't get power. So having that capability is important. So pursue that grant is what I'm hearing.
Yes,
And maybe come back with some costs in the future, what that might be, what we're dealing with. So,
Mayor, Council, I think once we have an official answer from the state, we can come back and have another conversation about that project with Council.
okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I just also wanted to make a comment and thank you and say, I think we have the best team in the business here, and you all do a great job balancing all of the different interests and the goals that the city has for capacity and stability, as well as resiliency and renewable sources. So that's a lot to balance. We've set a lot of goals and priorities here at the city, and I think you all do a great job of achieving them. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Goldford. I would just say there's a team behind us too. Tony and I get the pleasure of coming up here and presenting to you. But there's a fantastic team back at the CK Luster building that does the hard work. But I will make sure I pass that on, and thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Mr. Adams, any further questions?
They're only like halfway through
No, thank you. I'd echo Councilmember Goforth's
There
comments.
are
I think
other, we,
you got a great team.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll move over to, to the,
is there anything they want to finish out of this?
I think we're all good out of this. Mr. Kennington, we're all good out of this
You guys,
presentation?
did you guys have any other slides you want to go over for the IRP? Or are you guys done with the IRP?
Yeah,
If you have questions, I think we talked about a lot of it, but
Maybe.
why don't
just
you finish
A
up?
few more points, so let's go up one more. Where's the public input slide? Keep going. There, okay, all right, so, yeah, one of the critical things I do want to mention is that public input is critical to this process, and so generally with IRPs, what happens is utilities will host a meeting, a town hall sort of meeting, and you'll get 2 or 3 people showing up. And we've had that for decades, where we've had a couple people show up, they give us some feedback, and then we go on doing our business. Last IRP, however, we decided that a survey would be a lot better. It's convenient for folks. We can give them an incentive to participate in the survey. And this year, we got 167 responses, validated responses to that survey. That's 3 times more than what we had in 2019. And again, back in 2012, we only had, I think, maybe 6 people attend and provide us feedback. So we view this as a much more comprehensive look as to what our customers are looking for. And one of the things we had them do was rank, is cost important to you? Is reliability most important to you? Or are environmental concerns most important to you? And what we saw was a very tight grouping there. And so if you would have seen cost being number 1, it would have been much closer to numerically number 1 here. But they were all very close, but we do see that our customers still value cost, their utility bills as the most important factor to consider. And so we take that to heart in evaluating resources going forward. And then we follow up that question with, okay, if the utility has to purchase more renewable resources and it's going to cost you more, what sort of bill increase would you be willing to tolerate for that effort? And what we saw was about 1/3 of our utility customers aren't willing to tolerate a rate increase, but 2/3 are. And so you see that tolerance decreasing as the rate increase goes up. But we use these sort of statistics to evaluate how sensitive our customers are to those sorts of rate increases if we are proposing resources that are going to cost more. Thankfully, with the APCO project, with the SRP project, those are projects that achieve both. So we're hitting renewable resources and we're saving our customers money. So I just wanted to bring up that this wasn't done in isolation. We do reach out to our customers and aggressively seek input on this. Our resources coordinator, Deb Ferraro, worked really hard to get as many people as possible, and we feel like we got a good showing for this resource plan. So just want to bring that up as well.
That's very
Mayor?
good, thank you. Mr. Adams?
I applaud that we reached out to receive public comment and feedback. I think my reaction, though, would be tempered by, how many respondents did you receive? 160 some?
Yes.
Is hardly a cross-section of the number of households and individuals here in Mesa. So, and that's not a criticism to your outreach. It's just an observation. I know we struggle in other businesses that I'm familiar with to get a high response rate to any survey. But I would just, my comment would be less than 200 respondents may not be the most accurate temperature of the populace. Thanks.
And I'd like
Duly
to
noted.
comment that this is on the City of Mesa electric customers, is that the survey?
Yes.
So it's a very small part of our city. I don't want to discount what Councilmember Adams has to say, but just to bring awareness, this isn't a city-wide utility. It's, how many customers do we have?
Yeah, 18,000.
18,000 within
5.5 square miles.
5.5 square miles in the center of the city. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great observation.
Okay, very good. Are we done with the presentation?
Yes, Mayor, that is the only presentation we had prepared for the agenda. Now, Mayor, if you're ready for the agendized presentation, we can move forward with that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
All right, so we're going to roll over to the study session now. Item 2A. 2A is a presentation update on Mesa Climate Action Plan projects, including water conservation. Okay, Mr. Boshi, you got a different team here now.
I do. So good morning again, Mayor and Council. To build on I have a great team and I get to sit up here and help present. We have the Environmental and Sustainability Group with us here today. So I have Lauren Whitaker, who is an Environmental Program Supervisor, and Becky Zusi, who is a Conservation Coordinator. Now, we've made a commitment as part of the Climate Action Plan to come back on a regular basis and provide council updates on programs and projects that we've been working on associated with the Climate Action Plan. And so today we're going to be focused on water and specifically water conservation. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Zusi.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We're going to talk about some of the water conservation programs that we offer to our customers. We're going to highlight these three general areas: the residential grass to xeriscape landscape incentive. We're going to talk a lot about our non-residential programs, and then we're going to give you a brief overview of some of the education and resources that we offer. I wanted to start with our non-residential customers and just to kind of briefly remind everyone what we consider a non-residential customer. Of course, it's businesses and nonprofits, those that you've heard of, but we also consider HOAs, homeowners associations, as well as apartments as non-residential customers, because though they are made of residents, obviously, we're looking at their landscape, and that's the part that we consider a non-residential customer, the landscape. I wanted to start with our irrigation equipment incentives that are offered, again, to that non-residential group. These have been in place since 2018. These include things like water sense controllers. They are flow sensors, rain sensors, those sorts of options. And like I said, we've had this in place since 2018. We did have some previous grant funding for this, and we maximized the incentive available to these customers at $12,500. In 2024, in April, and I'm going to talk a lot about what happened in April, good things happened, we increased the incentive maximum to $20,000. We were actually quite pleasantly surprised that we had some very large customers take us up on this offer and did some major work to their irrigation systems. And because of that, we ended up having to reduce our maximum to $10,000 because the money was taken up so quickly. We had to do that in October. I wanted to point out some really nice successes. The savings, the conservative number of the savings from those programs from 2018 until 2024 was about 68 million gallons. The programs that did take us up in 2024, we're expecting a savings of more than 13 million gallons from those programs alone every year, in addition to, of course, the cumulative savings from the previous ones. Historically, we have seen a savings of about 15 to 22% of that landscape water at each site that has taken us up on these projects. This is a graph to give you an idea of how those projects have been spread out over the years. You can see we had the grant money in fiscal year 18-19, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit. Those numbers of projects, you see 5 projects, 7 projects. We've been lucky to work with some of our smaller HOAs. Some of our smaller businesses have taken us up on these projects, which has been fantastic. But then you see this fiscal year, we did have those very large HOAs take us up on these projects, and they are providing a potential for some major savings impact. So we're really excited about that. We're going to change to the grass to xeriscape landscape incentive. So I did mention we have a residential, but right now we're going to focus on the non-residential. That program has been in place since 2010. Again, we were able to get funding from the Bureau of Reclamation back in the day, and we did incentivize at a flat rate of either $5,000 or a maximum of $10,000. That equated to, at a maximum, 50 cents per square foot of grass removed. You can see that number didn't change for 13 years, and interest and participation started kind of waning. We heard from our customers, it just wasn't cutting it anymore. They weren't able to make that change based on these
these incentive amounts. You can see, though, we did have a significant savings over these years. Since 2010, we're estimating about more than 88 million gallons saved, 270 acre feet saved from the work that these customers did, saving about 10 acre, or removing, about 10 acres of grass and replacing it with xeriscape. And it was a total of 28 customers that took part in that. Which brings us to 2024. We did see that there was an intense need from this grouping of customers, this very large group of customers that use a lot of water in the city of Mesa. So staff was able to apply for and receive a grant for about $916,000 from the WIFA, which stands for the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona. And we focused that entire grant project on 3 sections that we are going to work with these non-residential customers. We're going to highlight each of these, but just a quick walkthrough. The grass to xeriscape landscape incentives, we're going to talk a lot more about that. The second one is water fluence. You may have heard of that, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's a water management platform, as well as landscape assessments. I want to point out the little asterisk that you see. We did not receive more money, but we shifted money within the grant because the grass to xeriscape landscape incentives were so popular. We asked the funder, WIFA, if we could move some of the money from the landscape assessments into that category. And about a week and a half ago, they agreed to that. So that's why you see that asterisk. So back to the non-residential grass to xeriscape. You remember that old number of $5,000 or $10,000? We increased the maximum now of up to $50,000. We offer $2 per square foot of grass that is removed. And as you can see, we do require a 50% low water use plant canopy to replace grass. It cannot be replaced with just rock. So we do have that requirement to change it into a xeriscape. We use a scientific-based number of 25 gallons per square foot annual savings to change that living grass into a xeriscape. We worked very hard to make sure we got the word out, and it turns out that was a good strategy. We created 2 websites on our water conservation page. We have one for HOAs as well as one for businesses and other commercial customers. We were able to work with community engagement and put on a webinar. We made direct phone calls. We did direct emails, social media posts. We put the word out in the Development Services newsletter, the Chamber of Commerce newsletter, the Together in Service faith-based newsletter. We really announced this program as loudly as we could. We did a direct mail that had one side saying, hey, folks, there's some great opportunities available with incentives on one side, and the other side was, we'd love you to consider not overseeding in the fall. So we really maximized the power of one direct mail with 2 messages. And you will see that this has proved to be successful. So we say 2024, I know we're already in 2025 and things are still happening, but the program opened in April. And within 10 months, almost all of the funds for the grass to xeriscape incentive were utilized, and now we have a little more wiggle room with that extra $100,000 that we shifted. There are 17 customers in the program right now. Not all of them are completed, but they are all either completed or in the process of getting this work done. An average of about $33,000 per incentive is what our customers are taking us up on. We're assuming about 7 million gallons will be saved through those current projects. But again, because that landscape will stay in place, we're looking at a 5-year cumulative savings of over 105 million gallons. So far, there's about 6.5 acres of grass have been removed or will be removed quite quickly and will be changed into a xeriscape. This is a map to show you all where these customers are. I wanted to point out something that these are not all completed projects, but they are in the process. We worked very hard to make the process streamlined and to incorporate other city departments within this process. We're very fortunate to work with some great team members in planning, engineering, civil plan review. So they review these projects as well. So it's not just me doing it. We worked with our data and performance team to make this process go more smoothly than it had previously. And this map does reflect, you'll see there's apartments, businesses, and homeowners associations that are taking part in this program. different way to visualize the success of how that grant has made a huge impact in terms of actual square footage of grass removed and turned into xeriscape. So since the program began in 2011, you can see we had some pretty good participation. Things kind of tapered off in about 2019. And you can also notice that we have been able to work with all three different groups, so HOAs, apartments, and other kinds of businesses, but that really did start tapering off in 2019, and now it's back. We are working with all those kinds of businesses again, and you can see the huge impact that that happened in 2024 with the addition of these grant funds. So we talked about the Grass to Xeriscape program. We wanted to build upon that. It's not just that, it's more than that. So this grant is allowing us to offer the program Waterfluence, which you may have heard of because our City of Mesa Parks utilizes this program. It's a program to help you understand how much water you should be using versus what you are using based on your specific landscape. This is only going to be offered to HOAs that have dedicated landscape meters. That's the easiest way to understand your landscape use. This is an example of the program provides a map, and then it says monthly, how much should I be using versus what am I using, and how can I get that more in line? We're anticipating about 40 million gallons will be saved annually by this program. We're excited to offer it. That's going to be coming up in the spring. The last program that will be part of this grant-funded program is landscape assessments. So that is going to build upon that Waterfluence that we just talked about. We're going to target the people, or the customers, who have the least efficient systems where we can say, hey, your usage is really high versus what you should be using. Let's help you understand why a little bit better. We're going to offer these landscape assessments. We're going to work with a professional landscape company and provide them with data that says, if you do this, this will help you in this way. We're going to be able to do about 40 to 50 of these HOAs. And again, we're going to target the ones that have the most potential for savings. And we're hoping that we'll save about 5% and about 13 million gallons annually through this program that is grant funded.
Awesome. As Becky mentioned, so we also have a residential Grass to Xeriscape program. So this program offers residents up to $1,100 to remove a minimum of 500 square feet of grass. Like the non-residential program, there is a 50% low water use plant canopy requirement to ensure that we're keeping those areas cool and improving biodiversity and other benefits of xeriscaping. The SRP has, starting this year, offered us $15,000 annually for the next 5 years to help support this program. So we're very happy to have started that this year as well, too. So this graph shows you the square footage removed and the dollars that have been distributed for the program over the last several years. You'll note that in January 2023, we increased the incentive for the first time in the program. This was shortly after the Stage 1 water shortage plan was initiated, and that's increased our popularity of the program significantly. The reason that we have such a high projection for this fiscal year, I wanted to point that out, is because the majority of residents finish their projects in spring. So we generally see less happening in fall and more in spring. And here are just some more metrics and numbers about the residential program. So since 2007, more than 600 homes have completed conversions. More than 575,000 square feet of grass has been removed, so over 10 acres. We have an estimated cumulative savings of 142 million gallons of water. And since 2019, when we started the tree bonus, we have 230 trees that have been planted as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention our office does a lot of work with educational tools and resources. We're part of the Water Use It Wisely program, which was actually started here in Mesa. So we're up to 21 partners now, working together regionally for outreach and education. We also offer a variety of guidebooks and resources. So we have landscape, plant selection, we have on-demand videos and webinars. We do outreach events, and we have things like newsletters so you can get reminders on your watering and when to adjust it. We have a small but amazing team, so I'd like to shout out again to the team that we have back at the office. They do an amazing job at some of these outreach events and running these programs. We're happy to take any questions you have.
Questions, council? Vice Mayor Summers.
There's some good messaging in here, and I just want to kind of run through it. So if I look at, let me maybe just ask. So if I'm looking at slide 8, and we're assuming, are we assuming 25 gallons per square foot annual savings? That's what the general rule would be?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor, we assume 25 gallons, and that's actually the number that WIFA uses as well for all participants who are removing grass.
So just looking at District 6, Mesquite Canyon, the HOA, took advantage of this. That's on slide 11, if you wanted to look. So Mesquite Canyon was one of the HOAs in my area that took advantage of this, and it was a little over 25,000 square foot of grass that was removed. So 25,000 times 25 is 600, almost 641,000 gallons of water that we're saving.
Yes.
And do we know what their cost for that would be?
So generally, thank you for the question, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Generally, the costs can obviously vary, but we are assuming approximately $3 to $6 per square foot for the removal. So this incentive does not pay for the entire removal. They are, putting in their own money.
Sorry, it made sense in my head. I didn't come out well. What was the cost of the water? What's the saving to the HOA for the water costs? And this is we just readjusted these numbers, so I know that non-residential uses went up significantly more than residential.
Sure. Mayor, council members. So
And landscape meters too.
I don't know if I'm
Thank you.
following is the question how much was their bill?
How much,
Per gallon.
what are they saving by switching over?
Well, I know
The
what
water
what it saves us. So the HOA, how much did you say?
It's about 641,000 gallons of water. So what are the HOAs paying per gallon of water? Do you know off the top of your head? And they're on landscape, as I was reminded, landscape meters, so they pay a different
Highest.
rate.
I'd have to get back to you on that and look up what that rate would be for that particular. We can get back to you on that.
Okay.
I don't know that rate.
3 acre feet of water, yeah. So just my point is I think there's a good messaging in here too, the messaging has been fantastic, and I've actually got a lot of feedback about how an HOA and businesses can participate in programs like this. So this is just another great message to tell folks in Mesquite Canyon that your HOA is saving you some money by switching over from grass, and in particular, more of the ornamental grass. They're not removing it from ball fields or playgrounds or active fields, but those areas that sit up against walls that really don't contribute to the quality of life in a neighborhood. And to replace that with trees, as an example, I think is a wonderful use of this program and saving some homeowners a little bit of money in HOA fees, which are getting expensive. That's it for now.
Ms. Goforth.
I had a question on how do you determine who are the most inefficient HOA water users?
Thank you for the question, Mayor and Councilmember Goldforth. So you're talking about the water fluence program? So the water fluence program, I don't know which slide that is. I'd go forward a couple so they can see the example of that graph. Keep going. Oops, I meant the other way. So, one back, there you go. So for example, on this graph that you can see here, this is an example, but that green bar shows you based on, so that particular map that you're seeing says this is X amount of square feet of grass, and the little orange part is X amount of square feet of desert. That generates what we call a water budget. You could call it a water recommendation based on ET and all these fancy things about how much water a plant needs. And then it inputs that into the system. So the green bar says plus or minus 15%, you should be hitting here. When you see the blue bar up above, it tells you what percentage you're at. You might be at 300% of what you're supposed to be using. And it'll tell us on a 12-month basis who is at the highest percentage. I will be an administrator of that program and will be able to look at who are highest, the most inefficient in terms of, oh, I should be at 100% efficiency, but I'm actually at 350%. So that's going to tell us a lot. And I think that's going to be such a huge tool because a lot of times a homeowners association, it's made up of, residents that are dedicated to helping their property, but they might not know this sort of detail. And they might say, I hear this a lot. Oh, well, we'll just raise the rates about 5% because this is how much water we usually use. What we're trying to get them to understand is how much water should you use? Let's get you closer to that amount, and maybe it won't be an increase for you. Maybe you'll actually be able to decrease your expense in water because you're going to be more efficient.
Great, yeah, that sounds like a great program. So the water flow, so it monitors all of our users and we're just,
It's going to be for all of our HOA users.
okay.
So
Who have water
who have a dedicated landscape meter.
Okay.
So there are some homeowners associations that have I don't know if this is the exact term, but a dual use. So it serves some homes, it serves some landscape. We're not able to directly understand what their exact landscape usage is. But I believe we have about 450, maybe more HOAs in the city.
Okay.
And we have sent all of that information into Waterfluence. They have mapped all of these properties. It's going to be a little bit of a project where we work with our new partners, our HOAs, and they're going to have to look at their maps. We're going to have to do a little tweaking, but it's all for their benefit, and it's going to help us reduce that water use to get it more efficient. So it's not even, you don't have to necessarily put an expense in, but you need to get yourself back to efficiency.
So do we know how many HOAs we have?
Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, I believe we have about 450 HOAs.
In the city?
In the city, yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's helpful.
Those are just the ones with dedicated landscape.
Well, there's a plus or minus. Yeah, I have to get all of that organized, but basically we've gone through the billing system, looked for the folks who have a dedicated landscape meter that are, of course, commercial, not residential. And then we've determined which of those are HOAs.
Okay. And do we have sort of a target goal, for these programs to say, we would like to see this much converted in the city? I don't know, or this many gallons saved in the city? I don't know. I mean, or are we just trying to get as many people with the funding that we have? Okay.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, I think that the limiting factor is the funding side. And as Becky was explaining, the more funding that you provide for the customer, the more likely they are to participate in the program. And so with the funds that we received, grant funds that we received, we were able to increase the incentive. And with that, it increased participation. Without increasing the incentive, I think you'll see that it'll go back more to what it was before. Because these are expensive projects. And to go back to what Vice Mayor had hit on, there typically is not an ROI just on the water savings alone for this type of project when you're removing large amounts of grass or even small amounts for a resident. You're not seeing that ROI that is going to pay back in a very quick time.
Without
an incentive
yeah.
being put onto that.
Okay.
Right.
And do we know, as far as implementing the program, is it better to work with a few large users, or is it better, or several small? Have we determined that, or?
That's a great question. So previously, we had a minimum of 10,000 square feet just to get that $5,000. With this WIFA program, we reduced that minimum to 2,500 square feet so that we could go to the smaller customers if they were interested. As a general rule, like I said, we are generally taking about 15,000 square feet out. We haven't had a lot of small ones, but we've had a couple. So I like to be able to work with all of these groups, because what's going to be interesting with Waterfluence is what I've heard from other cities is sometimes our smaller HOAs are even more inefficient than our larger ones. So we really like to be able to work with all of them if possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Heredia.
On the, hello? There we go. On the water affluence program, Do these commercial meters, landscape meters, are those digital, or are we, so we can identify maybe more efficiencies? Are we requiring, or are we changing out those commercial meters to the digital meters?
Sure. Mayor, Vice Mayor Heredia, those will be,
Yeah, I think they didn't change my name, so.
I thought that was recent,
You
but I
have two
didn't.
vice mayors today.
I was going
I
off
need all the
the
support I can get.
placard. I had a 50-50 shot, I blew it.
We're not keeping score.
Yeah, I could be.
We are going to convert those to AMI, so those will
Okay.
be remotely read.
Would that help on the I'm assuming that would help on identifying kind of inefficiencies and target maybe some of these HOA.
Well, it's definitely for us and for them, because once the portal is live later this year, not only will we be able to get alerts and be able to see almost real-time water usage, but the customer will as well.
Okay. And then on the great information on the residential, I know we have for the city, are we tracking, medians that we're changing out, or, ornamental grass that we have in a lot of these, mainly like our streets area, right? Where neighborhoods where maybe they're damaging walls. I've had several instances in my district on changing out that grass area where it's just, it's not probably the best use of water there, and changing it to trees and others. Are we tracking that change? And I know there is also a WIFA grant on the retention basins and parks. So how are we tracking alongside with this programs that you had in this presentation?
There's a combination, so Councilmember Heredia, transportation is doing some work in the right-of-ways. As you said, Parks is doing work in the parks. As part of last year with the Mesa Climate Action Plan funding, we're working with facilities and engineering on projects at 55 North Center, so just north of us here for the grass that's around there. We're having conversations about Fire Station 201, First Street and Center Street. There's a lot of ornamental grass. When we walk outside of this building, you'll see a lot of ornamental grass that's in medians. And so that's been a focus we received. So you hit on it with the grant funds that Parks has received. Transportation's been doing work on that. And then we have also received climate action funds to do work here specifically in the downtown area around our buildings. And really with the downtown buildings, it's to try and show folks, especially at 55 North, that's where if you're gonna get a permit, you gotta go to that building, right? A lot of developers are going in there, a lot of homeowners are going into that building. Really the idea is to showcase what can be done of taking out grass that isn't used for playing, it isn't used for anything other than being ornamental, and showing it can be xeriscape and look better than it did before. For those of us who have been here for a while, the Plaza building, or now City Hall, had a lot of grass that was wrapped around it that was dying, that we turned into the xeriscape that is here today. That was one of our first projects that we did here. And I think you could see as it's developed over time, it's a beautiful landscape that we have that surrounds this building.
Well, the word parks was mentioned, and so behind you, Andrea came in. Do you want to update on the parks? Andrea, why don't you give us an update on what your parks are doing?
Morning, Council. I would be happy to. So we started the turf reduction project in September, and we're about 22% complete. So that's taking about 54 sites and taking about 5 acres of turf out of those areas where people aren't playing on it, just around the borders, mainly of basins. All of them for that grant are targeted east of the Eastern Canal, so east of about Val Vista. So we have 2 sites complete, I think 6 others underway right now, and about a year to complete the rest of them.
Oh, good. Any others?
Mayor?
Sorry, I have one. Oh, go ahead, Adams.
We'll let the lady,
Please.
Councilmember, we'll let the lady go first. Ms. Goforth.
Yes.
So I'm embarrassed to say I was not familiar with Waterfluence, but I was just kind of looking around. So this is a free site that commercial and public water users can sign up for. So what is this $118,000 going for?
So, Councilmember Goforth, the site is actually free to those who are signed up for it. So the city, the grant is actually paying for it. It's a service, so there's a fee for the service. So Parks is utilizing this, as well as now our HOAs are going to utilize this. So we did pay Waterfluence to create these maps and then to maintain this monthly water budgeting platform.
Okay, that's helpful.
And this will only be available to HOAs, and then the Parks is paying for theirs.
Okay, and have we entered into other agreements with Waterfluence in the past, besides this?
With Parks.
Through Parks?
Yes.
For this sort of service, tracking our water use?
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, we've been using it for
I want to say 2019, we got a grant to start it.
about 5 years, and it's been very beneficial. So we tested it first before we went through rolling it out to the public to see if it really was helpful. And we've had great benefit. I don't know the water savings off the top of my head, but each site that we've been able to incorporate in here has been helpful to determine when we have excessive water use and when we convert turf into xeriscape areas to make sure that we're monitoring our water use appropriately.
So when we go convert everything to AMI, will this be necessary? Is this still a?
Well, yes, I think that the part that is very helpful with this is that you will still understand what should I be using. AMI is going to show you what you actually are using, and if there's a spike, that will be helpful. And also, Waterfluence does have the capacity to work with AMI. They are using it in other cities. So it still gives you that target to work towards. And AMI will then, on a more frequent basis, let you know if you're getting close to that target or outside of the target.
Based on what you have, your individual.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
great.
exactly right.
Thank you.
Mr. Adams.
Yes, thank you. A lot of great information here. I wonder, and if you need to get back to me on this, it's fine. I should have gone through and added up the total acre feet of savings that these programs are resulting in, but I'm curious if you know, in comparison to the total amount of water in a year that the city goes through, what percentage of impact in reduction do these numbers have? And as I say, if that's a number you need to get back, I'm just curious, are we saving 5%, or are we saving 2%, or do we know that?
I don't think we added it all up on any slide.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you guys. What do you think between the different programs, what the total, it's in hundreds of acre feet.
I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, so feel free to get back.
Councilmember Adams, I think we can get back to you on that. You know, I will say, when you do look at total water use for the city, it's high, and so this is not going to be a 10, 20% savings that you're seeing for the city. But one of the things we talk about when we look at our climate action plan is, you know, it's small bites. You can't eat an elephant in one bite. It's small bites over and over again. It's doing projects that make sense and continuing to do those projects over a period of time, and that's when you start to make the difference. And I think you'll see that in the landscape, especially because once that landscape's in place, it doesn't go away in a year. It's gonna stay there for 15, 20, 30, 50 years that you're gonna have that landscape in place. And so you pay for that conversion one time, and you're gonna see continual savings, with the idea being that people aren't going to then convert back and put grass in a retention basin that doesn't have anybody that plays in it. Especially once they see that the area looks nicer, in my opinion. That's just an opinion, but it looks nicer than just the grass that's there.
So Mayor and council members, so the math is pretty easy. We serve to our customers about 100,000 acre feet per year. So if we can get up to about 1,000 acre foot, now we're in the percent range. And I review these slides and looking at, you have a few hundred here, a few hundred there. We're getting up to the 1% range, but Scott makes the best point. I mean, every little bit counts. With AMI, we'll probably save through quick leak detection another 1 or 2%. Through our own leak detection program that we have with staff, you know, that's getting up near 1%. So you start to see, you have a percent, then another percent, then another percent. That's real water. That's a lot of water.
I appreciate that. I was just as a means of comparison, anytime you can move the needle in the right direction, that's a good thing. So thank you.
And real quick, if I may, Vice Mayor Summers, we have an answer to your earlier question. So that 625,000 gallons that would be saved every year from that HOA, we went back to look at what the rate is per kgal. So it would be about 2,700 a year they would save just in the usage. So pretty substantial. That's every year.
Okay. I'll take every penny.
And as rates go up, then that number goes up.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would
Krista?
like to add on, beyond the water savings, you should have some landscape savings as far as the maintenance crews being out there. There's going to be a lot less need for that. And I appreciate having this water fluence tool, because I think HOAs sometimes lean into their landscape maintenance company to set the water usage. And of course, they want it to look as lush and grow as quickly as possible, because that shows that they're doing their job, the plants look healthy, and they have a lot of work, right? But it may not be in a reasonable, amount of usage. So I think it helps know where's the reasonable amount of usage. A lot of the water sometimes can be runoff or excessive. And I think that's been a gripe of a lot of HOAs is in controlling those costs. So when they take advantage of the grant to do we require that they use smart timers or whatever, where it senses? I heard in the desert, sometimes it rains. I don't have any evidence of that in the recent months, but I heard sometimes it rains and that you don't need to water for quite a while.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Duff. We do not require it. We encourage it, that they have smart irrigation. We mentioned that they could also take advantage of the irrigation equipment incentives at the same time, and we specifically encourage them to do so. Some of them have taken us up on it, and that has been beneficial to them. Do it all at once, go for it, that's great. We do recommend that they pay attention to these things, and the water fluence thing I wanted to point out, you brought up a great point. The idea with water fluence is that the board members, the landscapers, and the property managers can all work together as a team. And we really encourage no one's against each other. This is a thing that you all work together to get to the common goal of the property looking good and not spending money on waste. That's not helping anyone. Excessive water use that's not contributing is not helpful. So this is a tool to bring those groups together so they are all on the same page. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. I have like a personal pet peeve about landscape companies that take desert plants and then they trim them into round balls, and they don't survive very well because they need their floor to shade the root structure underneath and everything. So maybe there was some education about some plants don't need to be trimmed. Yes, maybe annually clean out the dead, shape them and stuff, but they don't need, grass isn't meant to be in balls and meant to be like just various things. Anyway, some education about that. They just want to shape everything into a ball when the plant, really to do well, needs to be. Anyway, personal gripe. And then in our planning and development services, we have requirements as far as new developments, some advice about that as far as their grass, or I don't know if anybody is here, but I know there are some restrictions as far as the type of trees and things like that to make sure that we're using plants that are smart for the desert and such like that. And I don't know if there's any restrictions on grass, but we'll figure that out. But it's just smart too. If you're putting in new landscaping, do it right for our desert and for our future on water. Thank you.
Any other questions? Can you go to slide 15? I like the picture of that home there. I think it's slide 15. Seems like I've seen that house somewhere before.
Yes. I don't know if he's sitting behind me or not, but
This is Mr.
He's told us he's
McVeigh's,
going to
Jeff
start
McVeigh's
charging
home.
us for using this photo because this is a perfect example to me of this is a beautiful landscape. And to Councilmember Duff's point, it does not need to be trimmed every other week into a ball. It looks nice, yeah. So, and it doesn't need to be mowed every week also. So,
I bet he likes that.
yes.
It's also a great example of parallax in picture taking, because that looks like a football field, and then I'm like, what happened to the yard? Did we expand the road?
My takeaways from the conversation is that I think we've got a lot of different resources here. You know, I was going through, I think it's a responsibility to look at the type of landscape you have on your properties, do an assessment, and then you have your water per use or gallons for each type of landscape you have, and then you putting in the smart controllers to monitor that. So they'll take that assessment. Then you have your smart meters, your AMI meters help to facilitate that. What I didn't hear was collaborating with AMWA, Arizona Municipal Water Users Association. I think you're doing that because I sit on the board, and I think using their resources to help you. Are you doing that with AMWA? I'm sure you are.
Yes, so
Okay.
Mayor, we work with AMWA on a very regular basis, and so we utilize that plant book. You might have heard about
Yeah.
the low water use plant book. We've been very active in creating that as a group, as well as working with AMWA. And we turned that into our Mesa plant square footage calculator to really help people understand how to use the resource and turn it into how to make that 50% requirement and just do it all online and make it easy. A couple of cities have asked us if they could emulate the same program, so we're working with them through AMWA. The other thing that we did learn through AMWA, we do talk about WIFA grants as a group.
Yeah.
And who's participating, and it helped us kind of help create our program, thinking about what other cities we're gonna be doing, because one landscape company crosses many borders, and so we wanted to be somewhat consistent.
Good. Okay, with that, I don't see anything else. Ms.
I would
Goldberg?
just end with one comment that I think that what the city of Mesa is doing in investing, as the technology advances, we invest in that technology so that people become more educated about their water use, I think is really important. And that they can determine, I mean, we would like to encourage them to be, to conserve, but ultimately, with knowledge, they can determine how much they want to conserve. But we give them that opportunity to know what they are using and then the ability to make those choices. So I think it's great that we continue to invest in those advanced technologies like AMI and even the water fluence program so that we give people more information. Thank you.
I'll just finish. I know that we're going to experience some water cuts for this coming year. Chris, you might allude to that. It could be not extensive, but we're going to have water to replace hopefully the water that is being cut out of our portfolio. So we need to do all the conservation that we can, and that's extremely important. With that, anything else from the council? And if not, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the current events and council conferences attended, and council members. Do we want to say what you've been busy doing? Just go for it.
Me? You can go for it.
Do you want to go first? Okay. Miss Duff. I know.
I'll say that my home participated in the historic home tour on Saturday. It was a fundraiser for the Mesa Historical Museum. And oh my gosh, it was a lot of people. Their goal was to sell 200 tickets. They sold 525. They were out of materials and stuff like that. But, of course, we had the people through, and so it was very successful. It was a nice day. And thank you for everybody who came out to see the homes and raise money for the museum. Also, yesterday I attended a Coffee with Cop event at Encore, our senior living right here on First Avenue. I wanted to thank the Central PD, their community action officers and staff, as well as Red Mountain was there. And Lindy, help me, Lindy Moreno, do I have the name right? She, a crime prevention officer from Red Mountain, came out and did a presentation to the residents about fraud for, with seniors is a big thing where how they get caught in fraud situations. So it's very beneficial for them. It's a good event, well attended.
Thank you. Who's next? Julie?
Last week, we had our East Valley breakfast with the governor for the State of the State address, and all the East Valley chambers put that on, but it's hosted here in Mesa, so that was great. And then we had our Martin Luther King parade on Monday. Councilmember Summers, Vice Mayor Summers, and Councilmember Heredia and I were there, smaller group this year, but so many staff members were out there, and huge mayor's youth committee, and just great representation, and honoring Martin Luther King that day was really great. That's it.
Mr. Summers?
You were saying the fire truck ride was much smoother than usual.
smoother.
Yeah, that's.
Guess I'm out of a job.
No, just for the folks who live in the Bella Via neighborhood in my district, I will be out there this weekend, Saturday. Check your HOA website for information if you have questions, comments. Just want to meet me. I'll be there speaking with the HOA board and group.
Anyone else?
Quick,
Mr. Rudy?
just an announcement on a event this Saturday at Riverview Park, Cops and Bobbers. Hopefully it's not too freezing. It starts at 8 a.m., so folks are welcome to attend. The park rangers will have tons of fishing poles and breakfast, donuts, and other activities. So 8 to 11 this Saturday.
License for that, right?
And you don't need a license. They'll help you there set up. And so really, I think last year we had over 100 people out there. 8 to 11 at Riverview Park this Saturday.
Mr. Adams?
Yes, thank you. On the 14th, I had the privilege to attend a forum on housing and homelessness that was presented by the Chamber's Community Action Partnership. It was very well attended. In my poor estimating ability, I would say at least 50 people were in attendance. There was great discussion. Mayor, you may have some comments about this as well, but my hat is off to David Scott. David is very active in the chamber with Meadows Bank, and he was one of the primary organizers and the moderator. I think a great number of important issues were laid on the table. Organizations that are all looking to address the problem were there, and many good ideas shared. So I think it's a great start to our being able to work and move the needle in the right direction in that problem as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Goforth, anything?
One thing I'd like to mention is I've been out and about in my district. I did another reading at Mendoza Elementary with the authors of they happen to be small business owners here in Mesa, and they authored a children's book that they're about Mesa, and part of the proceeds support Mesa Public Schools. So anyway, we've been to several different the elementary schools in my district, and last week we were at Mendoza, so that was great, and thank you to them, Steve Collins and his team.
Well, thank you. I was able to attend the U.S. Conference of Mayors this past week. It's kind of cold in Washington, D.C., but fun experience. They put me right on a panel regarding firefighter safety and cancer-causing agents called PFAS and PFOA. So I got to serve on that committee. And other than that, it's all been busy, so appreciate that. Mr. Smith, do you have anything for the council? So we'll go to Mr. Kennington. Any
Future events?
future meetings and updates?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The next council meeting will be this Monday, January 27th at 5:15, study session, after which the council meeting will follow at 5:45. We also have an event this Saturday, January 25th, where Mesa is going to join the surrounding cities in its annual regional Unity Walk and Festival. The festival begins at 4:30 p.m. at Tempe Beach Park with a 1-mile candlelight walk starting at 6 p.m.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I'd like to add on that at the Arizona Natural History Museum, a new exhibition called Thrive will be opening on Saturday, and it is about the human histories of the Sonoran Desert people, and archaeologists will be talking about the evolution and, you know, the history of our region. And there's a great number of exhibits, can't wait to see it, so check that out.
I believe we also have an investiture tonight for our judges, correct, at the Post?
Yes.
Okay, and that starts at 5 p.m. And then Susan Ritchie at the Mesa Historical Museum is giving a presentation on buffalo over at the LDS Visitor Center tonight at 6 p.m. if you want to know about bison, buffalo. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Goforth and Mr. Summers. We're adjourned.